Thank you all for attending this subcommittee's field hearing today, where the weather is that torrential downpour. And I am excited for us to begin hearing our first panel of witnesses. I'll introduce our panel and I'll talk about how our hearing will proceed forward even as our guests continue to join us. First on this panel, I want to welcome Major Shalela Dowdy, who serves as the founding president of Stand Up Mobile, a nonprofit organization that does work centered around voter engagement in Mobile County, Alabama, and as vice president of the Mobile NAACP. She is also a plaintiff in the Alabama redistricting case Allen v. Milligan, where the Supreme Court ruled that the state's congressional maps likely violated the Voting Rights Act. Major Dowdy earned her bachelor's degree from the United States Military Academy at West Point, served 6 years in the United States Army on active duty, and is currently in the Army Reserve, where she holds the rank of major. Next, I'd like to welcome Lauren Haddix, who serves as staff attorney for the ACLU of Alabama. Laurel has served as part of the litigation teams challenging Alabama's redistricting maps in Allen v. Milligan, and previously served as a fellow at the Equal Justice Initiative. She served as a judicial law clerk on the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan, earned her JD from the University of Chicago Law School, and her bachelor's from Vanderbilt University. Last on our first panel, I'd like to welcome Latasha Brown, the co-founder of the Black Voters Fund, a power-building, Southern-based civic engagement organization. Ms. Brown is an award-winning organizer with over 20 years of experience working in the nonprofit and philanthropy sectors on a wide variety of issues related to political empowerment, social justice, economic development, leadership development, wealth creation, and civil rights. Welcome to our panelists. Before we move forward, I'd like to lay out the mechanics for today's hearing. After we swear in our first panel of witnesses, each of them will have 5 minutes to provide their opening statements. After their opening statements, we'll move to the next portion of the hearing where I'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Following that, we'll move to our second panel where the witness will be given an opportunity for opening statement. We are live streaming today's hearing, so if you brought your cell phones, we'd love for you to remember to silence them and remain as quiet as possible so that we can preserve the congressional record. I'll now ask our witnesses to stand and raise their right hand. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect a response in the affirmative. Thank you all. Major Dowdy, you can proceed with your opening statement.
Chair Butler, Ranking Member Cruz, and other distinguished committee members, thank you for the opportunity to submit this testimony concerning my experiences with racial discrimination in voting in Alabama over the past decade. I'm a major in the United States Army Reserves and graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, second vice president of the Alabama NAACP, and the founding president of Stand Up Mobile, where we believe that it is important for all people to have their voices heard, especially those who are too often excluded from the political, economic, and social institutions that help shape their lives. I submit this testimony as an organizer who is passionate about voting rights and fair access to the ballot. This work led me to become a plaintiff in the ongoing historic voting rights case, Allen v. Milligan, where, alongside my co-plaintiffs, we fought against Alabama's racially discriminatory 2021 congressional map and the 2022 congressional map. Both maps passed by the legislature in response to the U.S. Supreme Court affirming that the 2021 map likely violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, failed to provide Black Alabamians a fair and equal opportunity to elect their preferred candidate, and instead unfairly prioritized the needs of white Alabamians and limited Black voters to have any true influence by giving us basically only one out of the 7 Alabama congressional districts. Alabama's elected officials and those in positions of power have a continuous history of unfairly minimizing the voting power of Black people and enacting voting restrictions that make it disproportionately more difficult to vote and have their votes counted. This pattern continued during the redistricting cycle after the 2020 census. Alabama's Reapportionment Committee was tasked with drawing new congressional, state House, state Senate, and state school board maps. The committee held over 20 public hearings around the state, both in person and virtually. I attended the hearing in Mobile in person and virtually attended a number of additional hearings held around the state. At hearing after hearing, Black voters urged the committee to stop unfairly limiting the voting power of Black Alabamians and to draw two districts in which Black voters could have a real chance at electing their candidate of choice. The Reapportionment Committee ignored these voices. It rushed through its process in a matter of a few days and with limited chance for public input, and once again produced a map that unfairly limited Black voting power to one congressional district. It did so by continuing to crack the Black belt region into 4 districts, splitting Montgomery County, and failing to unite communities of interest in my hometown of Mobile with those of the Black belt. The committee also failed to allow citizens the opportunity to provide public commentary on the maps the committee produced. The committee also did not allow the Black elected officials adequate time to review and provide input in the creation of the maps. The actions of the Reapportionment Committee showed a lack of responsiveness to Black Alabamians. In January of 2022, the 3-judge court panel agreed with me and the other Milligan plaintiffs that Alabama's 2021 congressional map likely unfairly diluted the voting power of Black Alabamians in violation of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, as it provides Black voters less opportunity than other Alabamians to elect candidates of their choice to Congress. The court decided that the appropriate remedy is a congressional redistricting plan that included either an additional majority Black congressional district or an additional district in which Black voters otherwise have the opportunity to elect a representative of their choice, but told the legislators to be mindful of the practical reality based on the ample evidence of intensely racially polarized voting adduced during the preliminary injunction proceedings, that any remedial plan would need to include 2 districts in which Black voters either comprise a voting age majority or something quite close to it. After putting the decision on hold, the Supreme Court ultimately agreed that the congressional map violated Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Given this decision, the 3-judge court allowed the Alabama legislators to reconvene and produce a congressional map with a 2nd congressional district in which Black voters would have a fair opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. The legislators chose to defy what was ordered by the highest court in our nation. The committee once again produced a map that was not fair and equitable, and in the summer of 2023 did not produce its proposed map in time to allow public commentary on the map. The 2023 map consisted of Congressional District 2 having a Black voting age population of under 40%, which the state itself admitted was not one in which Black voters would have been able to elect their preferred candidate in any of the past elections that they studied. The words of the court to Alabama were blunt and unmistakably in calling out Alabama's blatantly and purposeful failure to fix the racially discriminatory map. The court states that it was deeply troubled that the state enacted a map that the state readily admits that it does not provide the remedy that the federal court requires, and that it was disturbed by the evidence that the state delayed remedial proceedings. This time, the court echoed the voice of the Black Alabamians in explaining that it could not help but find that the circumstances surrounding the enactment of the 2023 plan reflected a significant lack of responsiveness on the part of elected officials to the needs of Black voters in Alabama. The court noted that the legislators' purposeful decision not to create an additional opportunity district was strong evidence that it was unwilling to respond to the well-documented needs of Black Alabamians. Alabama chose to defy the order and the opinions of both the lower court and the United States Supreme Court, which revealed its dismissive attitude towards the requirements of federal law, and to an effort to stop its decade-long pattern of excluding Black Alabamians from exercising their full and fair measures of political power. The legislative branch makes the law, but we have the judicial branch in place to expertly interpret the law. Choosing to defy the courts resulted in a court-order map being produced that cost Alabama taxpayers over $500,000, not to mention the several $million in attorney fees they will undoubtedly owe. This is funding that could have gone towards much-needed Medicaid expansion, healthcare issues, education, and so much more. The Alabama legislature does not seem at all shamed by the court's rebuke and instead has doubled down this legislative session on another exercise of modern-day voter discrimination in Senate Bill 1, which has passed in the state Senate and is moving through the State House. SB 1 will criminalize average Alabamians who assist others with their absentee ballot or the process. By the time this testimony is admitted into the record, the bill will have likely passed in the Alabama legislature. This is a dangerous tactic of voter suppression that is being implemented that will have a drastic negative effect on the Black voting populations and voters with disabilities who disproportionately rely on ballot assistance to navigate Alabama's burdensome and confusing absentee voting process. During the 2021 municipal elections in Mobile, Alabama, I had the opportunity to work in the city's absentee election office for 3 months. I assisted citizens who walked in to complete the in-person absentee ballots due to Alabama not having early voting as an option. I had the opportunity to witness many citizens who do not understand Alabama's complicated absentee process, which requires not only a copy of their photo ID, but also signatures by 2 witnesses or a notary. On Election Day, I assisted with the counting of absentee ballots and witnessed numerous ballots that were not counted because the citizens did not adequately complete the absentee process. In my experience in Mobile, these ballots and those in need of assistance were disproportionately Black voters. This is not surprising, as I know a federal court in Alabama recently found that Black voters are also less likely to have access to the internet or a computer in their home, less likely to have broadband internet, and less likely to have a computer, smartphone, or tablet compared to white households. The same court found that 12.7% of Black households do not have a vehicle compared to 3.9% of white households, and that Black Alabamians with health care risks face poverty at higher rates than their white high-risk counterparts. All of this fits with my experience that Black voters are more likely to need access to the absentee voting process, but Alabama law has made it more burdensome for them to use it compared to white voters. SB 1 continues this trend. In closing, Congress must restore and strengthen the Voting Rights Act. Alabama has shown that it is shameless in consistently enacting discriminatory voting laws, which then must be challenged in court, and which can take years to play out and can negatively affect individuals like myself who are working to assist Black voters in Alabama. Requiring jurisdictions like Alabama, which persistently continues to discriminate against Black voters and other voters of color, to seek pre-approval once again for voting changes would help ensure more equal access to the voting process, and voting power will go a long way in making the state live up to its professed values and comply with federal law. Thank you for the opportunity to testify and for being willing to listen to myself and the others who are testifying. It feels reassuring knowing that we have elected officials who care about what is going on out in the districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Dowdy.